Hey, good morning, everybody. How's it going out there? Welcome to our second edition of the video this week. I hope you guys are doing great. This is Julie Hamilton, Life Builders, simple tips to build a strong and healthy life. Look, I got my undefeatable shirt on today. Man, I tell you, you put on a shirt that says undefeatable, she knows no weapon formed against her will prosper, and you're gonna feel powerful. You guys all need this shirt. It's from Propel Women. Got it at the conference. I don't know if you could find it online or whatever, but you need this shirt that says undefeatable. Hope you guys are doing great. Good morning, Jody. Good to see you. Hey, if you're on, say hi, because I can't see everybody that's on right now. All right, so I want to talk, oh, Paula. Hi, Paula. I wanted to talk a little bit this morning. I haven't done a book review in a long time, and so I wanted to kind of do a little bit about Big Magic. This was one of my favorite books that I've read this year, Big Magic. My other two favorites are probably When Breath Becomes Air and Atlas Shrugged. Those are kind of my two other favorites. Even though I've read a lot of books, those are the ones that I was really like, oh my gosh, you know, like really into. So anyway, this is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I've never read anything of hers, to be in all disclosure. The only thing I knew about her is she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which I never read, and I need to. And then also that Damien had photographed her, and she was very nice, he said. So that's like the extent of my knowledge of Elizabeth Gilbert. And when I started reading this and I was like, hey, we're gonna read this together, everybody in the whole planet was like, wow, that's an amazing book. And I felt like, I think I'm the only person on the planet that hasn't read this book, and now I see why. This book was amazing, and I wanted to tell you 3 big lessons that I learned from this book. So it's Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. It just talks about, you know, creating and all the things that, you know, God's put in your heart that you have inside that are ready to come out. And it talks about accessing those and digging those up. That's the big magic, is digging up what's inside of you. And the first thing that she really brought up, the first lesson I really learned from her, is that you don't need anybody's permission to create. You don't need to wait for somebody to come to you and say, wow, that's a really good idea, you need to do that. No, you can create anytime you want. You can create anything you want. And you don't even need to tell anybody. And it made me think about when I used to run, probably about 5 years ago, I started running. But before that, my only experience was running was awful. And the last experience I had before that was in college when I ran with my sister, and my digestive tract was all messed up, and I was just really bad, and I think my mom had to come pick us up and all this. But when I started running, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my husband that I was going to try to run, because I just felt like it was such a ridiculous idea for me to run. I'm not a skinny person. I'm not like one of those athletic runner people. You know, I'm very curvy, and I just felt like embarrassed about the fact that I wanted to try running. So I decided to just download the app Couch to 5K, because I was on the couch. Hey, good morning, Heidi. I was a couch person. I was not a running person. Couch to 5K, it's great because you run for like 90 seconds and then you walk and then you run, and over time you increase your running distance to where you're running a 5K. And I did it, but I never told him. I never told anybody that I was trying to run. But you know what? I really didn't need to, because that was between me and myself and a goal that I had personally. And this brought home the fact that you really don't need to have permission to do something creative, to do something that's going to improve your life. You can do it just because you want to do it. And I thought that was such a great, powerful authority given to just do it. So that was my first lesson, that you don't need permission to create something. The second lesson I took from it that was one of the most impactful for me was that your creative work doesn't even have to be important. That means, like, my creative work, it doesn't have to have 50,000 likes or 1,000 likes or whatever. When you put it out there, it's not always for somebody else. Sometimes you are just creating for the joy of creating. And that is okay. That's what we're created to do. You have stuff inside of you that needs to be poured out. And you can create without it being important. You can create without feeling the pressure of somebody like, oh, I can't do this unless I'm getting paid for it. That is so not true. And as for me, for this particular thing of making encouraging videos and encouraging posts, I don't get paid a dime for it. I don't have a sponsor. I don't do anything like that. But the point is that I'm creating it because it brings me so much joy. Like the fact that you guys would even tune in to hear what I'm saying, it's not, you know, I'm not that important person, I'm not that, but the fact that you would trust me with like 5 minutes of your morning, it just means so much to me. And I have the best, I call it a job, but I feel like I have the best job in the world. Like, to me, being able to just say an encouraging word to you, it brings so much joy to my life. And, you know, I do it for that and for the sake of encouraging people and using my gifts. And you don't have to do whatever it is you're doing for money. If you love to paint, paint. You don't have to get paid for it. If you love to write, you don't have to get paid for it. You know, when you start getting paid for it, I'll tell you something, is because we do have a creative business where we get paid for being creative. And when you start getting paid for it, this is the concept from the E-Myth book. If you've never read it and you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to pick up the E-Myth. The E-Myth is that if you're a good painter, you're going to be a good entrepreneur. It's not true. When you start a business doing whatever that thing is that you love, you end up spending so much more time doing the other things than you do doing what you love. So we're photographers. But in our business, what we end up doing is contracts and accounting and creating albums and paying our license fees and buying equipment and all this stuff. We spend probably less time creating than we used to when we just loved it. So that's the thing. You don't have to get paid for whatever you love to do. You just do it for the joy of it. And it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be important. Sometimes you're just doing it for yourself, and that is okay. So that's my second thing I learned from her. Doesn't have to be super important. And I think the third thing that I walked away from this book was, I thought such a valid point, is like right now we always say, follow your passion, do what you're passionate about. But what if you don't know what you're passionate about? What if you haven't figured it out yet? What if you're still in the phase where it took me till I was 40 years old to figure out that I have a voice and I'm good at encouraging people. That comes naturally to me. I don't have to work for that. And some people can do it and they have to work for it, and that's just a gift that I have. But why did it take me until I was 40 to realize this? You don't have to be 40 years old till you start your thing. And sometimes we're saying, follow your passion, follow your passion. You're like, I don't know what my passion is. And I love the thing that she says. She says, follow your curiosity. Oh, Britta, it's Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Such a great book. But she says, follow your curiosity. And she talks about this moment where she felt not passionate about anything. She didn't feel anything at all. And she thought, well, what do I feel curious about? And she ended up going out in her garden, and she hadn't been a gardener, but she was like, I feel curious about this. And so she kind of started researching the garden, but what she got into was really like the backstory of the plants and what their heritage was, where they came from. And in the end, she started doing some traveling about, learning about botany and historical roots of plants and stuff. In the end, she ends up writing her next novel about a botanist in the 19th century. So following that curiosity led her to her next project. So when you feel like, you're like, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know what I like to do. I don't feel passionate about anything right now. If there is a little twinge of curiosity about anything that's good, follow that twinge. Just follow that and see where that path leads you. It's like stepping stones. It may take you to some place that's beautiful and brilliant that you never even thought about. So that's my 3 things that I learned from Big Magic. Permission. You don't have to have anybody's permission. Number 2, your creative work does not have to be important to anybody but you. And 3, follow your curiosity. Doesn't always have to be your passion. I would love to hear what you learned from this book. I mean, so many people now are calling this book, I heard somebody call it the Bible for creatives. I mean, this book, you could take like a sentence from every page and expound on it forever and ever. I mean, some of these pages are like so marked up for me, you know, but yeah, it's so good. You should read it. If there's anything in your heart that's like, wow, it's Creative Living Beyond Fear, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And it's easy to read. It's not hard to read because I love how she talks in stories. Oh, and that's the other thing she said about how about it not being important is like her first 4 or 5 novels, she still kept her waitressing job and the other jobs because she didn't want to have to lean on the writing for money. She didn't have to put that pressure on herself. So that's the other point that I forgot to say about point number 2, about it doesn't have to be important. But anyway, I hope this helps somebody. Go out and buy this book. I thought I was the last person on earth to read it, but if you haven't read it, then go read it. You will not be disappointed. You will be encouraged and you'll be lifted up and you'll be like, hey, I got stuff to do. So dig deep, find the big magic inside, uncover those jewels that are buried deep inside. And I love you all. May your mind be fierce and your heart strong and your spirits very kind today. And I hope you have a great weekend. Tell me what you learned from it if you read it, okay? All right, bye.